Hi guys, so now let's start with the radiology recall in this INI-CET. Now radiology this time had few bouncers, absolute bouncers. There were two questions which were like even more than MD level and nobody expects you to know the answer to these questions. Right, so let's quickly go through the important radiology questions asked in today's INI-CET, in this INI-CET. Now the first question is a middle-aged diabetic woman from Assam presents with chronic cough, weight loss and cavitary lesions in the lungs. Lung biopsy reveals caseous necrosis with Langerhans giant cell and liver biopsy shows granulomatous inflammation and histiocytic rich infiltrate. Right, ESR is raised, which should be strongly considered in the DDs. Now, based on the histology, that lung biopsy shows caseous necrosis, Langerhans giant cell. I'm thinking of TB. Again, liver shows me granulomas. Again, TB can be a possibility, but TB was not there in the options at all. Now, this was a similar question which was asked in the few INI-CETs back, in which the pleural fluid ADA was used to differentiate TB versus fungal. Right, and that time the answer was a fungal infection. Similar to that, this time also INI-CET has given a fungal infection in a pathological way. Right. Now let's see what are the various options. Now sarcoidosis shows us granulomas, yes, but they are non-caseous necrosis, non-necrotizing granulomas, and no Langerhans giant cell. No Langerhans giant cell. So again, unlikely. Aspergillosis shows me hyphae. Again, not the answer. Histoplasma, yes, it can show me granulomas, and yes, it can also show Langerhans giant cell. And it's a very close DD of TB. Now let's see the fourth option, granulomatous with polyangiitis. Now this is GPA, or earlier name was Wegener's granulomatosis, but now it's been referred to as GPA. Now granulomatous with polyangiitis, as we know, is a small vessel vasculitis. Right? So at its core on histology, you should see some sort of vasculitis. Right? And if we have read Robbins and if we have read pathology, we know the type of vasculitis here is a necrotizing vasculitis. Necrotizing vasculitis. Yes, you can also see granulomas, but vasculitis is a strong feature of GPA, which is not given in the question. Right, so even by ruling out options, we can come to histoplasmosis as the answer, which is the answer in this case. Right, so TB versus fungal is favorite for AIMS. Multiple times this has been asked, and this time again, the examiner twisted the words and asked something related to TB versus fungal. Right, so histoplasma is the answer to this question. Now, next question, a 40-year-old female patient presents with acute flank pain, no fever, no flank tenderness. So, whenever flank pain is our symptom, we are thinking of a kidney problem, right? Now, no fever, no flank tenderness tells us that there is no feature suggestive of pyelonephritis. Right? That is what the examiner wants to tell me by giving no fever and no flank tenderness. What is the most appropriate imaging approach for evaluation? Now, I've talked to students who are confused between X-ray followed by CT or ultrasound followed by CT. Now, remember, acute flank pain is a type of acute abdomen. Right? Now, whenever we talk of acute abdomen, we have talked this in class multiple times. The first investigation is an ultrasound. Right? So, the first investigation will be an ultrasound. It will not be an X-ray. And because we are thinking of nail stones, we'll follow it by CT. So, the option is B, ultrasound followed by a CT scan. Next question. Now, this was a bouncer. I'm sure a lot of students would not know this, but still would get this correct, right? Now, ACR class 2 MRI contrast agents can be safely given in which of the following conditions? Now, ACR class 2 MRI agents are macrocyclic agents. Microcyclic gadolinium compounds. And according to ACR, they are very safe. So even in advanced renal failure, we can give. And in fact, ACR says that when you're giving this class 2 macrocyclic contrast agent, you don't have to even get a RFT done. You don't have to estimate the GFR. They're very renal safe. They have extremely low risk of NSF. So let's see the option. 30-year-old without any renal function test, you can give. 12-year-old with renal function test, you can give. 60-year-old without renal function test, you can give. 50-year-old with EGFR less than 50, you can give. The answer is 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, all options are correct. Let's see what are these class 2 agents. So this is a table that I've taken from the ACR manual on contrast. This is the official table from the ACR manual, American College of Radiology, manual on contrast media. And it says that class 2 agents are associated with few, if any, unconfounded cases of NSF. It is only class 1 agents which are associated with the greatest number of NSF, and it is only in class 1 agents you need to get an RFT done. Here is RFT is needed. Now, what are class 1 agents? So, just for your information, if you're given in the option anytime gadodiamide, gadopentate, gadoversitamide, they are class 1 agents. Now, gadodiamide and gadopentate were earlier used. In fact, I know few of the diagnostic centers which use them even now. They should not be used by ideally. Now, class 2 agents are the one which are very safe, and let's remember few important names. So, remember gadobenate, multihans, which is specially used in liver imaging. This is specially used in liver imaging. Then gadobutrol, gadoteric acid, and gadoteridol. So, gadobutrol, gadoteridol, gadoterate, and gadobenate. These 4 things you remember, these 4 compounds you remember, they are very, very renal safe, and they are the most common contrast agent, MR contrast agents, which are used now in most good hospitals, big hospitals. And as we say from the ACR guidelines, again, ACR mentions that when you are giving class 2 agents, right, based on most recent scientific and clinical evidence, ACR Committee on Drugs and Contrast Media considers risk of NSF among patients exposed to standard or lower than standard dose of group 2 GBCAs. GBCAs is gadolinium-based contrast agent, is sufficiently low or possibly non-existing. So, risk of NSF is very, very low, non-existing, and such that the assessment of renal function with the question or lab test is optional prior to intravenous administration. So, you don't need to do a RFT estimation prior to giving these class 2 MRI contrast agents in these patients, right? So this was a little new question, a little high level question. I don't really expect MBBS students to know this, but this time the paper was a little tough. It was moderate to difficult level, and there were some bouncers like this. So this was one of the question, and all options in this question are correct. Now, next question, match the following. So this was an easy question, right? So for CT scan, is pancreatic pseudocyst is the disease. PSMA PET we use for prostate cancer, MRCP for obstructive jaundice, and FNAC for thyroid nodule, right? So A1, B2, C4, and D3, right? So option B is the correct answer. So this was an easy question. I'm sure a lot of you got this question correct. Next, a 60-year-old man presents with low backache. There is history of ATT intake 1 year ago with 4 drugs. He gets a follow-up MRI done which shows the following lesions. What is the next step? So students have told me that there were a series of spine MRIs, right? And so this is the near closest image that I could find. There is a lesion in the thoracic vertebra, right, which is pointed by this white arrow. So this is the lesion in the thoracic vertebra, and another lesion was there in the lumbar vertebra. Now, whenever there is a history of ATT intake and on follow-up MRI, there are persistent enhancement seen. So what are we mainly concerned about? Not the lesion per se, but persistent enhancement, right? That means there is a residual disease. And now we want to see whether the patient has drug resistant TB or extremely resistant TB, right? So MDR, XDR we want to rule out, and hence we need to do a biopsy from the lesion and probably do RT-PCR. So gene expert might be sent, and hence for that we need a sample of the tissue. So whenever there is residual disease post-treatment, a repeat biopsy is done to assess the histology again and to assess whether it is MDR or XDR TB. So the best answer here is biopsy of that lesion. Now, protein electrophoresis, we do it for multiple myeloma. We're not really suspecting here. So that is out. MON2 test will not tell me whether it is a residual disease. It will be positive even in a treated patient. And CT chest, yes, it might help me tell me about the lung TB, but we're not really worried about lung TB here. We want to see what is the disease, residual disease in the spine. And so the best answer here is biopsy from the lesion. Next, now this was an absolute bouncer, very tough question. I would say even MD residents, radiology residents would not know this answer. And in fact, to be honest, I had to search to get the answer of MR defecography, rectocele. So on MR defecography, which value would be called rectocele? Right now, this is the answer is C, 2 centimeter bulge into the posterior vaginal wall. But let me tell you the concept. What is MR defecography? Number one, this is how an MR defecography looks like. We use MR defecography for pelvic organ prolapse. For pelvic organ prolapse, right? And in MR defecography, what do we do? As you can see in the rectum, we have injected a gel. Now, gel is bright on T2 weighted images, so rectum sort of appears bright on a T2 weighted image. We take a mid-sagittal section and a T2 weighted image. So in the T2 weighted image, anteriorly I will see the bladder, which has been highlighted by this B. Then this is the uterus, the cervix. Cervix is an important landmark. And finally, posteriorly, we have the rectum. Now, in MR defecography, we take 3 phases. We image it during rest, during straining, and during evacuation. So the patient lies in the supine position actually, and then we take the measurements in the rest phase. Then we ask the patient to strain, like put pressure in the lower abdominal as if he's going to evacuate, but hold it in that position. Do not evacuate the rectal gel yet, and then start evacuating or start evacuating the rectal gel. So these are the 3 phases that we get. So in the first phase, in the A image, you can see this is the one at rest. And what are the landmarks that we mark here? This is the pubic symphysis, and this is the coccygeal, lower border of the coccyx. So from pubic symphysis to the lower border of coccyx, we draw a line. This is the pubococcygeal line, right? And this is the anorectal junction. Anorectal junction. Now, what are the other landmarks? So we have bladder, cervix, bladder. So this will tell bladder wall, bladder neck will tell me about urethrocoele, cervical descent, and these are the 2 important landmarks. Now, what we do when we ask the patient to strain, the second part is the second image is that of straining. Now, can you see as compared to the image A, in image B, the rectum anterior wall is sort of bulging now. Here the rectum anterior wall was straight. Here it is sort of bulging now, right? So what do we do? And in evacuation again, the next phase is evacuation. Again, you can see that the rectal anterior wall is bulging even further. It is bulging even further. So this is the bulge that we measure. And how do we measure it? We draw a line perpendicular to the anal canal. So if this is the anal canal, anterior border of anal canal, I draw a line perpendicularly up and then measure this anterior rectal wall descent. This anterior rectal wall descent tells me about rectocele. This tells me about rectocele, right? And what is the grading of rectocele? So rectocele is diagnosed, let's see, as anterior rectal wall bulge, and it is measured during maximum straining and evacuation. And a line drawn through the anterior wall of the anal canal is extended upward, and the rectal bulge greater than 2 centimeter. This was mentioned. This has been mentioned in this article. 2 centimeter anterior to this line is described as rectocele. So I draw a line straight up from the anterior wall of the anal canal, and rectal bulge more than 2 centimeter is defined as rectocele. So rectal bulge greater than 2 centimeter to this line is described as rectocele. This article, the MRI imaging of this is a joint recommendation of European Society of Urogenital Imaging and European Society of Gastrointestinal and Abdominal Radiology, and they define rectocele like this, right? So this was a new question which was asked this time, a very difficult question to be honest. But defecography was asked last time, MR defecography was asked prior to that, right? So yes, it is a PYT, but I don't expect you to know this at all. It was a very tough question as far as NEET INI-CET is concerned. So that is all regarding today's radiology recall. I hope you got few of the questions correct. I'll see you in the next one.